You all set, Sarah?
Yep, you're live now.
I'm sorry. It is 11:01. We'll start the Orleans Traffic and Parking Study Committee meeting. All of our committee members are present. I did not receive any emails for public comment. Sarah, I'm assuming we still don't have anyone in the waiting room that needs to speak at this point?
Nope, nobody there.
Okay, thank you. If they pop in, there's a couple new agenda items that we may have someone come in, just let me know and we'll jump right to that item. I provided the draft minutes from our last meeting, which was on January 25th. Any issues, revisions that we need to make to those?
I move approval.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor, why don't we just raise our hand if you're okay with the minutes approval? Okay, that's unanimous. Okay, open issues that we have. This is reoccurring, Jeff, with their middle school parking lot safety issues. Anything to add to that?
No update right now.
Okay, and I understand that Tom Conrad's going to be retiring. So when the new superintendent comes in, I'm assuming we're going to start from scratch on this issue.
Most likely.
Traffic calming devices, methods. Again, this is going to be driven by our FY22 budget request, so we'll keep this on as an open item.
Yep.
And that's going to be the same with item number D, which is a specific sign request, the solar speed signs for Main Street. Go ahead, Matt.
On the budget request, that is now going to be a town meeting article. And the thought behind that was that if it's approved at town meeting, the $20,000 goes into a pot and stays there for however long it takes to spend it. It isn't something that at the end of the fiscal year you have to turn back into the general fund. So it will be a warrant article, and we probably ought to talk a little bit about speaking to it at the town meeting and persuading the people to vote for it.
Okay, so it sounds like it's a good thing. It's moving forward, Matt.
I can't imagine that properly explained that it would be any issue at all to pass.
Okay, great. Thank you for the update. Complete streets. Before you get into it, George, I know Alice wanted to speak to this issue too, and she's going to be running a little bit late, so we can certainly circle back to this. But go ahead, George, if you want to give us an update if you have anything.
Yeah, we submitted a complete streets plan back in January. When we hear back from the state, we'll know our status. If we're approved, we can apply for funding. And the Bike and Ped Committee is pretty anxious to start putting together priorities. But as you know, the priorities list is not always easy to come by. Sometimes it's the project that is in front of you that you're looking at doing that you can use complete streets for. So there's more to come on that. As soon as I get approval from the state, I'll let you know.
Okay, thank you, George. And again, when Alice joins us, we'll circle back. I know she has something to add on that. Quonset Road speed limit sign and the stop sign, Daily Terrace and Kettle Pond have been put up. Ron, thank you very much. I checked out the advisory signs on Quonset and the stop sign. Everything looks perfect. Appreciate it.
Awesome. Thank you, Chief.
Great.
All right, so where are we? All right, the Orleans parking sticker program. I do have some slides for the committee to take a look at. So as you know, Nate and I have been working on prioritizing certain locations in town to really get a feel for any restrictions that we're going to put in place. Okay, can you guys see River Road Landing?
Yep.
Okay, so River Road was one of our primary areas that we wanted to address. So the key issue here is from June 15th to December 15th, we're going to have a resident permit requirement. And where you see it indicated in blue, that's where parking with a permit will be allowed. Now, we have certain locations, and I'll review each location with you, that there'll only be specific times of day will this be enforced. This particular area, in the landing area, there's no time restriction. So a permit will be required from the 15th of June to the 15th of September. One of the things that became problematic when we decided to, when we discussed this issue, is once these vehicles are displaced, where are they going to go? We know that we had people from all over the area parking on River Road, more so up in the Heights area, Doan Road, Priscilla area. So where are they going to go when we put these restrictions in place, and how do we enforce that? So one thought would be, technically, you cannot be obstructing a travel lane. So if you see a vehicle parked in the roadway, technically that is a violation, and maybe you can give a ticket for that. There hasn't been strong enforcement of that over the years. The only way we can address this issue of displacing these cars from these various locations is to do that. We have to start enforcing that restriction. The alternative would be to post all of these side streets around these areas, which I don't think any of us want to start posting, putting up hundreds of signs all over town restricting parking. So with a full-time parking enforcement officer during the summer months, it's going to allow us to bring consistent enforcement throughout the summer months. And it is going to be Nate and my recommendation that these side issues where these vehicles are displaced can be regulated through that enforcement process. Does that make sense to anyone? Does anyone have any questions on that? Matt, please.
Did I draw the right conclusion that Lucy's Lane and Packet Landing would both be roads that really nobody could park on because they would be in the travel lane?
Yes, and that's the thought. So there may be an area where, let's say, a homeowner wants to have a yard sale, or they want to have guests over in the house, and they're able to pull over. That would not be a violation. So they could certainly do that. But in most cases, especially on River Road, there's very little opportunity to pull off the roadway and not have any of the tires touching that pavement. Now, in your wider areas, this is specific. It's the width of the travel lane that really dictates whether or not there's going to be a violation. And River Road is very narrow, so pretty much anything on the roadway is going to be a violation. Now, I'm going to get into the other areas real quick, but just how are we going to do this? How is this going to be enforced? Jim Rosado and Casey Egan have done a lot of research on some parking management technology. So what we're going to do is that we just put in the purchase order. It's going to be the enforcement officer is going to have the remote technology to issue these tickets. It's a program that if we choose to, as a community, we can expand. I know there's been conversations about maybe going down this kiosk path. Maybe we can do that at some of our larger parking lots. This type of technology can mesh with that. So it has room to grow. We can
Chief,
build a database. As you know, we may have cases where you have someone that doesn't have a resident sticker, but may be authorized to be in a particular area. We can build that authorization into the system so the enforcement authority would know prior to the ticket being issued. More to come on that. We'll brief you, but I'm really excited about this new technology coming in. And I think it's going to make things a lot easier with some of the issues that we were concerned about with mooring holders and things like that. Meth, yes.
And not to be a meanie or anything, but I think it's good to remember that it's hoped that revenue from parking tickets will somewhat offset the cost of the enforcement officer.
Yeah, I mean, that would be, I guess, you could look at that as kind of a bonus. I think we've talked about this before. The goal is to stop the negative behavior, not necessarily to generate revenue, but we both know that revenue usually comes with enforcement.
Chief, what is the enforcement cost? What's the ticket cost?
Well, that's something that we're talking to John Kelly about. It's statutorily driven, and you have to include penalties for failing to respond also. So we're still working through that, George. Ultimately, how do we memorialize all this material that we're talking about right now? We've been looking at, I think Provincetown does a remarkable job with their parking enforcement and regulation. And I think the town should use that as a model as we're moving forward. But at this point, we're taking baby steps. We're going to get there slowly.
Yeah.
Let me review some of the other locations with you. You can see this is Doan Road. We've had significant problems at this particular area, mostly from beachgoers. So Nate and I met with a couple residents up in this area. We decided that we should not really address the portion of Doan Road that's not illustrated in this graphic here, the long straightaway that goes there. But the blue would indicate the permit required parking. Again, June 15th through September 15th.
Mhm.
And the red parking here that needs to be restricted would have to erect some no parking signs there because those are identified problem areas. Any other particular area that you see on Doan Road that's not a landing, it'd be the same approach that we have with addressing the displaced vehicles. If they're obstructing the travel lane, the parking enforcement officer may ticket those vehicles. Again, the residents on Doan Way had no interest in posting that entire street, no parking, even for a specific time frame. So we believe this is the best approach to that. Priscilla Landing. Oh, go ahead, Matt.
So if there's no sign posting no parking, are people who park in the travel lane still, can they still be ticketed?
Yes, they can. And again, Matt, that alleviates from us from putting up hundreds of signs all over town.
Yeah, that's good.
Right.
This is Priscilla Landing. A lot of this area is already marked. If you see this whole red down here on the south side of the image that you're looking at, that's already, at least the straightaway is already designated no parking. This particular area up here. So the blue would indicate permit parking only June through September. In this particular case, only from 9 to 5. So the thought here was if that we had maybe renters in the area or someone that wanted to come and park and enjoy this area, maybe early morning or later in the evening, they could do so without coming in, being in violation of the parking restrictions. However, between the 9 and 5, a permit would be required for any area that's indicated in blue. You can see at this location, there is a small area here that would allow for non-permit parking. There's probably room for 2 or 3 cars there. So that's the thought. And the other thing we'll have to do is identify, declare this cul-de-sac as no parking, because as of right now, we're doing that through an emergency order of the police department. One other thing of note, in speaking with John, and I know John has consulted with Mike Ford, is that the town can easily regulate parking in lots, and that would include town landings. But when we start getting into public ways, like this particular area here, we really have to be very specific on the area that's being regulated. An example would be 6 feet from house number 135 in a northerly direction for approximately X amount of yards. So that's something, Tom, I know that you had discussions with Nate, something that you feel that DPW could get that detail for us.
Hold on one second. Say that again. Which detail?
The specifications of the no parking on public ways.
Oh, yeah. You mean like writing it up? Yeah, we
Yeah.
can definitely measure it up. Once you guys know where you want, the areas to be, we can measure it up. That's not a problem. I've done that before. Scott, while I have you, can I ask one question?
Sure.
All right, so this ultimately gets approved by town meeting
No. Board of
or select board? Select board.
Correct.
All right, so what is so is the intent to have this all squared away and up and running for June 15th of this year?
Yes.
All right, so we need to coordinate a lot of sign making and installations, it sounds like.
No, Tom, because a lot of this, like this area right here
Yeah,
on,
that's set up already. I'm
that's
aware of
already set
that.
up. We're gonna need a sign to address the cul-de-sac.
Right,
Okay.
right.
And then on Doan Road, there might be 2 or 3 signs there. That would
Right. We just need to
correct.
coordinate, with Ron Trudeau, exactly what they need to say, locations, so we can get them on order in enough time to make this happen. That's all.
Yep. Yeah,
All
we're
right.
with you.
When do you think the select board is going to vote on this ultimately, Matt?
Well,
It's not, basically, the select board has given Scott and Nate the assignment of going off and creating a program. When they're ready to submit it, I think that the select board could vote this anytime. The select board knows this is going on.
Yeah.
so this is the, pretty much the final step in our process, Tom. If I get the approval from this committee, then I'm gonna request to speak with the board and present this to the board as soon as possible.
Okay. I just recommend, from a preliminary standpoint, we start putting together exact locations of signs, like specific locations of signs and what each one says, so we can get that stuff on order.
Yeah,
The materials on order.
Nate told me he had a discussion with you about this, and it's something we feel we can get it done.
Oh, yeah. I mean, we've talked about, you talked with me about doing the marking out the specifics for the board to vote it, right? But just the materials themselves, we need to coordinate a little bit too. That's all.
So if we can arrange a time to maybe go out with Ron and get into the specifics on each location, Tom, that would be great. We can talk about that offline.
Yeah, no, yes, absolutely. Just recommend doing it sooner than later, now that you're at this point. Yeah.
Okay. Wildflower is, again, the blue would indicate permit parking only. And again, Wildflower concerns me again, because folks kind of create their own parking spots to pull off the side of the road. They've done a lot of damage on the access to the beach with pulling over, and that is now gated, and hopefully that will remain gated to keep people out from that area, which is right here where that blue line is indicated. And again, we would enforce the obstruction of the travel lane on Wildflower to address the displaced vehicles. And the only difference for this location, folks, is that this is already in effect, but there is no parking at this location overnight from 11 p.m. to sunrise. All right, everything else is going to be the same as the other locations. Cove Road, again, this is going to be resident permit parking only from June 15th to September 15th. And those are the areas that we have addressed thus far. I think once we have this process established, things can move much more quickly. Again, I think the parking enforcement technology is going to make this a lot easier than it was when we started this process. So with that, I'll open it up to any questions or concerns that you may have. Okay. Oh, Meth.
So when you get to Wildflower, nobody's going to be able to park in there without a permit ever. At any time of day. But they will be able to park at Skakit after what, 4 or 5 when the booth closes.
That's correct. So that does have an overnight restriction though. So you're not supposed to be in Nauset or Skakit overnight.
I'm just thinking of sunset people, Rock Harbor and Skakit would be the two sunset things.
So maybe a 9 to 5 here also?
Oh, no. I think Wildflower, I think the Skakit Beach parking lot is sufficient for that. I think Wildflower is a special, special case. I think it deserves to be that restricted.
And one of the things that Nate and I have discussed is really designating parking within this particular area. How do we control how people are going to park? Now, that's not a paved area where we can put permanent lines down. So we're trying to discuss how we can really do that. At this point, we haven't come up with a solution. If signage will do it, cones. Tom, I'm sure we'll be reaching out to you for some advice at some point. So
how many cars do you think can park there in Wildflower? What do you figure?
What?
I don't know.
Do it in the other room?
I don't know. I know Nate has a better idea of how many he feels he can get in there. I just don't know off the top of my head what that number is.
He can see me.
Anything else? So
Just a general question.
go ahead, Doug.
This is different than just the resident beach sticker?
Yeah, so there's going to be, none of this has been confirmed yet,
Yep,
but the direction we're going in is that this resident sticker would allow residents to park at Nauset Beach, Skakit Beach, or these particular areas.
yeah, okay.
And Matthew, jump in if I'm incorrect, but there may be another sticker that will allow people just to park at the beach parking lots and not at town landings. The whole purpose of this is to provide better access for our local residents to these specific areas during the summer months. So giving our residents some priority.
Yeah, I'm just thinking on getting the information out to the general public. Some communities I know when they send specific things out, send that out with your tax bill. Oh, by the way, guess what's happening? Obviously, we put it on our website, the town website, just to let everybody be aware of all this.
No, it's a great idea. How do
Any other
we push
means?
this out? Yep. Go ahead, Matt.
So my understanding was that we were proceeding with the resident beach sticker is the sticker we're talking about. The resident sticker is going to have all these privileges and parking privileges. The stickers that might be purchased by visitors is going to be different, and it's going to be a different color, I think, and that's going to be limited to just the Nauset Beach and the Skakit Beach parking lots. It's not going to allow any parking privileges anyplace else.
So we're gonna have to do a little coordination on this.
Yeah, right. That's what I was thinking. Right.
Well, that ship sailed this season. We're already cranking out copies and putting together the mail-in program for stickers. That process has begun. So I just thought it was just the beach sticker, got you here. A resident beach sticker got you here. If we're talking another sticker, we can't do that this season. That's not like just the easiest lift in the world. That takes some effort. So if I'm missing something here, we should pull this offline with Nate and further this conversation.
So I guess the person that buys on vacation buys a 1-week pass is going to be able to park at the town landings too?
No.
Let me add to this. The key to this is this technology that we're going to purchase. Ideally, it'd be nice to have 2 separate stickers, but Tom, I do understand it's probably a little late to do that. But what we can do with this technology is that we can build a database of residents. So, and we can have the area clearly marked that says this is resident parking only. And if you're not a resident and you're not in that database as an authorized person or an authorized vehicle, then you can be ticketed. So even if you have a sticker and you're not in our system. So I think that's a good workaround for this.
Yeah.
particular year.
Deal with it on the enforcement side.
Yeah,
Yeah. Okay.
yeah. So
Oh,
go ahead.
may I ask a question?
Certainly.
Yeah, hi, everyone. This sounds great to me. Scott, so 2 things. One question is around the wildflower parking, and I do think that probably would be important to have really clear slots or something. And then my question is, will the gatekeeper at Skakit be able to direct folks down there? Is there going to be any, because what happens sometimes is residents come to Skakit and it's full, and so you leave and go home. So it would be nice to be able to say to a resident, there's 5 more spaces down there, go ahead down or something. Or so that's just one thought. And then the other thought is, will your guys have some kind of this technology you're talking about? Is it like a hand scanner that they can quickly pull up the license plate, or how does that work?
It's all through the mobile device, so through their Apple phones.
Great.
It comes with the equipment, and as soon as you plug the plate in, it will indicate whether or not that's an authorized plate. Now, there's going to be some data entry, Tom, that will be required in this particular case. That was not planned, to take all the authorized residents with a sticker and put it into the system. So we will have to do that. We're going to let it build on its own. But once it's in there, that will be very beneficial. To your point, Alice, thankfully our community service officers were approved in FY22. There was a little risk that we're going to lose that. So that's key with the communication, because many times those community service officers end up at Skakit Beach to assist with traffic and overcrowding. Having the communication between them and the booth to provide them with information on available parking down at Gavigan's will be good. So we can do our best to make that work.
Yeah. I think that could be helpful just there's a couple of residents that live down there, and rather than people kind of going back and forth searching for stuff, to know what's down there ahead of time and say, no, it's full and whatever.
So if we have the people down there to do that, we can certainly make that happen. It's just a matter of having the resources to do it.
Right.
So I guess at this point, I'm asking for, and again, this is subject to change. I still think we might have to tweak a few things, but I'd like to present this to the Board of Selectmen. Is there any concern with Nate and I doing that? Is everyone okay with this? Okay, I don't think there's any need for any official votes or anything, so I'm just going to move this and talk to John about getting this on the agenda. Okay.
This is Libby. Could I ask a question about Wildflower?
Certainly.
Yeah, just in general, if I'm in line at Skakit in the queue to get into Skakit Beach, and I'm a resident and I know I can go left on Wildflower, do I have to continue to wait in line and get to the shack before I do that? I always wonder how that works.
So if the line is built up enough so it's stretched out on Skakit Beach Road, technically, Libby, you could not cross that double yellow line and drive in the wrong direction. That's obviously a safety issue.
Okay, yeah.
But what we try to do is with our community service officers, when it gets that crowded, we put them down there. They may direct you and allow you to do so. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So if we can safely direct that traffic, we'll do that.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. All right, so let me end this. Alice, George just give us a complete streets update, but I know you wanted to speak to this issue, so the floor is yours.
Thanks so much, Scott. Yeah, I wanted to be sure, maybe George mentioned that, to be sure the committee was aware of a conversation that we had with George at our last Bike and Pedestrian Committee meeting. And that was that, our concern, the Bike and Pedestrian Committee's concern has been around how do we move forward with the implementation of some of the projects on the prioritization plan for complete streets. So there's currently, a whole slew of projects. How do we start sort of getting agreement on the priority projects that are realistic, that could be implemented? And then what's the strategy for actually implementing those so that this just doesn't go by the wayside? Because we feel like we've got some really good momentum, including that we've gotten the attention, I think, of a lot of people to know that something is moving forward in regards to safety for pedestrians and bicyclists. So What was agreed to is that the Bike and Pedestrian Committee would go through that list and see if we can agree on 5, what I called realistic projects. And by realistic projects, I meant, the projects that are not going to be a big political fight that might require some legal work, et cetera, at this point, and projects that are actually implementable because they're manageable both for DPW, the town, and our finances. So that's sort of where we're at. And then we will bring those 5 projects to this committee, because this should be the sort of the last kind of oversight committee, we think, prior to it going to the select board. And then we can all agree, okay, so these are the 5 top projects. And what that's going to do to help us is that when grant funding comes up, so for example, we applied for some grant money to do an engineering study for the to the community preservation funds. When there's an opportunity like that, instead of being paralyzed by inertia, we can just kind of move forward, because we've already done, the legwork to identify the projects, get the right people to agree, and we can go forward. We do have one member of our committee who's done some really good research and investigation on some possible funding from the ADA through the Massachusetts, ADA, that could help with funding. And there's all sorts of other potential funding sources, including safe routes to schools, et cetera. So we wanted to know if you guys all agreed that that sounds like a good process, and if not, what would you recommend? And then if we all agree that's a good process, what I would say is that you all should go back, and that would be, Tom, Scott, Doug, to go back to, and George, who looks at this often, to go back to that prioritization plan and see what you think should be the top projects. So then when we have this conversation next month, hopefully next month, we can all sort of be on the same page to say these look like the right things to start moving. So I just want to know how you feel about that, and whether you want to amend that process at all, or whether you can all get behind that.
Thank you, Alice. Any thoughts on that?
Oh, makes sense to me.
This seems to make sense because all 3 chiefs are doing a regular report with the select board. So that doesn't add another visit to them to get things rolling. And, Tom Daly puts together a program with Ron, and they bring something in there that's got the blessing of the bike and ped and traffic advisory. It seems like it's that kind of project is slanted toward approval automatically.
That's great.
Thank you, Alice. I agree. I think it's a great idea. And we will, why don't we add this to the next agenda? And you'll come in with the top 5 areas from the bikeways. And hopefully we'll do the same on our end.
Great. Yeah. And you don't have to spend a ton of time, but just so it's not Greek, when we sit down and talk about it and everybody's had a chance to sort of peruse those and say, yeah, this makes sense. That'd be great. Thanks so much, guys.
And we have a list of that priority list, right? I think we received it.
You do, Doug, but I'm happy to send it out again, or George can.
I'm sure I've got it. It's the same one.
I'd appreciate a fresh copy, just so we know
Let
we're
me
working on the
distribute
same
plan
thing.
again, and it's got the priorities list right in there.
That sounds
Excellent.
great,
Thank you.
George. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next item. Again, this is a signage review. It's been on our agenda for a while. Libby has been kind enough to develop a couple slides for us to review. So I think that the goal for us today, we've been talking about for so long, is let's pick a sign. Let's move forward. Let's get this done. So with that, let me share the screen here. And Libby, would you like to walk us through this? I know, Doug, you were going to do some research also.
Certainly, a lot of some of these slides are slides from Brewster that are close to their beach, where the speed limit is, way down to 25. Others are just general share the road signs from Harwich and Brewster. And then the second slide is the slide that is a collection of all the official MUTCD signs from the state. And I had some email communication with folks Department of Transportation about this. So these are signs that are compliant. I know there was a concern to have things compliant, but in the end, it turns out that whatever the town jurisdiction wants to do, they can do. And my vote would be to have a sign that looked like the W16 with an addition of a bike graphic icon of a pedestrian and a bicycle with it. So
Libby, would we be getting away from the, what we've had up there before, the walk right?
it wouldn't have any impact on the walk left, right, walk left, ride right. It would be something for motorists. The walk left, ride right is for the people that are walking and biking. My concern is to remind motorists that there are other people on the road. Like on this first slide in the bottom right-hand corner, that's to me is ideal because it shows all three flavors of people that are on the road, and they all need to be aware of each other. Motorists need to be aware of bikers and walkers.
So are you asking for a combination of these two bottom signs on the right, or just to
No,
share the
you
road?
see the bottom right sign would be great. If you put that where we've got thickly settled 30 miles an hour, maybe take off thickly settled and put up share the road. Because we've got the 16 thickly settled signs.
All right. Doug, do you have anything to add?
Well, I think, look, again, see, I'm big on compliance and liability. And that, what you have there, the bottom right there is obviously some made up in someone's shop and someone's, to put it out there. It's a non-compliant in Mass DOT in the federal document, the MUCTD. So that's my reservation about it.
Okay,
Yeah.
but what they said was, the Department of Transportation said it's really up to the town to put up what they want. And if we have to use one of the signs from that next slide, then we can use share the road, the third one, the one on the right, and that is not to be used alone. You need to add something with it. Those are the regulations right there in black and white. So let's pick one and take action. This has been going on since October.
No, I agree. And I think that you're not going to find a compliant federal sign or a compliant Mass DOT sign that has all three bodies. There was one that I think I forwarded to the committee. That's a R9, which is walk left. It was black on red. It's usually black on white, which I'm not sure, Chief, if you got it
I
right.
thought I had it, Doug. It's not, is it this one? No?
Let's see, that one is a R97. That is a possibility. There's also one, Libby, if you're trying to just talk to pedestrians, there is one that basically tells pedestrians, I think that was the one, the black on white, where it says walk on left. It's called an R91, and you place it on the right-hand side of the road. I think as a young person growing up, it's inherent about some of the things with walking as a pedestrian. Hold your hand when you cross the street, walking across, look both ways, walk against the traffic. Those are pretty standard things we all learn growing up as young people. Certainly.
So again, I just want to reiterate, I'm not concerned about the message to the pedestrians and the bikers. I'm concerned about something that draws the eye of a motorist, because very often when I walk down Beach Road, I can tell nobody is looking. There's no peripheral glance at all. I mean, I just want to see something in the line of the drivers that reminds them that there are both bikers and walkers on the road.
Hey, Chief, can I
Yes, George.
say something? On this slide, thank you for moving to this one. I looked at what the Cape Cod Commission regional plan recommended, and their recommendation is the W111 over the share the road W16
Right.
1P. That's what they recommend, and that would seem to be a move toward a universal,
Right.
alert for drivers. And boy,
Right.
when I look at those Brewster signs, I get awfully confused, and I'm just sitting here. I'm not driving.
Right.
Can I,
You want
so,
to be consistent and make it
Yeah.
easier for everybody, and all of a sudden not present something. It's like, what does this mean? So I
So
think the consistency is so important.
so George, you're thinking the 11:15, not the 11:1, right?
What is recommended by the Cape Cod Commission was the 11-1 over the 11-6 over the 16.
But
But
so what I, and I think that, going to what's the message that is really important. And I think you're absolutely right, Doug, with educating people about the walking at this point is tricky. We do have an issue with the J1s, but they're a unique
Yep.
class that just don't
Yep, I
get
agree.
right from left. I think the one that has the bike and the pedestrian is more communicative of share the road with both users, whereas
Yeah.
the 11:1 is just about bikes. And
I
in our community, we have just as many people out there walking, oftentimes erratically, as we do people riding bikes. So I would vote for 11:15 if we're just going to go with one.
So 11, W11-15 with the W16 would be a good combination.
If we were to just go with one, I think 11:15 communicates sharing the road with those two users. So if we have to go with one, and rather than make something up, as Doug said, in someone's shop that doesn't come close to compliance, I think the most important thing for motorists to understand is they're not the only ones on the road, and that
Exactly.
says that. That says
Not to be a stick in the mud though, Alice, I believe that one, the 11-15, I think that's intended for a crosswalk. It's not a freestanding sign on any section of road.
okay.
So
And
you're
It looks like
presenting-
both of those are then alert road.
Yeah, if you go around town, I think you can see, for example, Main and right Main Street, right near Snow's. I believe there is a sign like that one right there that tells people there's a crosswalk. So if you had it freestanding, in other words, you had it on Beach Road at some random location, you're telling somebody that you're not conveying the information you want to relay.
That makes sense, Doug. Now that yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. So it could confuse people if they think that's the
Correct.
entry. Yeah, whereas
Exactly.
share the road is just the generic, anywhere you are, you need to share the road.
Yeah. And it's interesting, W11-2 is for shared use roadways. It even says so in their description.
But by horses and walkers, no bikes.
Oh, bikes was there. I must have put it out because they were doing carts and farm animals. And so I was just eliminating some text.
Okay, so we're halfway there. I think we all agree that W16 1P share the road is going to be part of this. What sign should we have that complements that, that's compliant?
Can you go to the previous slide? All right.
Maybe the Tubman Road combo?
Yeah,
Yeah, I think that's Rock Harbor Road too.
Tubman, yeah, that's a good one.
I think it's on Rock Harbor Road, going north on Rock Harbor Road, right after Skakit Beach Road.
Which one, Doug?
Upper right.
Oh, okay.
That way you're consistent, and I think we ought to also make sure that whatever we do around town, we're consistent. We have the same type of.
So are we all thinking that the one that says another option, I mean, it's really a combination of those, but on one sign, does that make more sense? I don't know.
It's non-compliant.
Yeah.
I'm just worried about liability, Alice. I mean, I've been in court. I've been over situations where see people are mistaken. They driver expectation, something happens and it's like, all of a sudden you show them the real sign of what's out there, and somebody made it without, interacting, viewing the manual uniform traffic control devices.
That makes a lot of sense.
So
I,
if
Chief?
you use share the road and that's compliant, you can add something on above that, like that's on the top right corner that is not compliant and that's satisfactory? Is that what I'm understanding? Because the one on the Brewster Tubman Road sample, that top sign is not MUTCD compliant. It's not one of the samples that was provided by the Department of Transportation, but would that pass because it's got the share the road with it?
As I said, I think that sign, Libby, is on Rock Harbor Road too. And I think that is a compliant sign.
Okay, so when we're looking at this top right-hand side, Brewster Tubman Road, which we may
Yeah.
have in town already, we feel that that is compliant, and this is the sign that we want to go through. In town, this is going to be our share the road sign. I guess that's really the question right now. I like it. It's
I like
compliant.
it.
Are we all in agreement? Anyone have anything to add? The only thing I want to understand is that we're not moving forward with the left, right pedestrians, left cyclist. We're removing that, right? This is going to be our sign. Top left. Am I
Well,
correct?
I didn't have an understanding that you were gonna remove any of your walk left, ride right. To me, it's a separate issue.
Okay, so I'm sorry, I shouldn't say remove, but,
Yeah.
okay, so we're going to have multiple different signs addressing this issue? Is there a way? Is there a way?
My concern is a sign telling motorists they need to share the road with bikers and walkers.
There's no
So,
sign that tells you both bikers and walkers. There's none that does all three. You need two signs.
Okay,
so
we're going to move forward with a two-sign approach. Top
share
left,
the road verbiage, and then what is gonna be the graphic? Is it gonna be the bike and the walker, or is it gonna be the motorist with the biker?
I would vote for number, if I'm a voter, I'm not, but. But you're not a stick in the mud either, Doug. So I'm going to say, let's just move it forward with that one on the Tubman Road. That looks great.
I like that. Tom,
I
Jeff?
agree.
Yeah, I
George,
like
please?
that one.
Okay,
It sounded like George liked it too, and
We've got some in town already that are.
beautiful.
I'm okay with it. If Doug tells me that's MUTCD on that top sign, I'm in.
Okay. And Jeff?
I'm good with it. I think this is a really huge step to consistency. I love it.
Okay. All right, folks, that's going to be our sign. And this is something that does not require selectmen approval, so we can move forward on this on our own. Now we come down to the question, money. Is this something that we're going to have to wait for the potential of FY22 funding? Or Tom,
Okay.
I guess it comes down to you. Do you have the money in your budget?
Okay, so okay, we can back up a little bit. Okay, we've come upon a sign we like. All right, what are we doing with it? Are we swapping out everything we already have out there in the world? Is that the plan? Do we know where all these signs are out there in the world, in Orleans type of thing? Do we just start cleaning them up as we find them? Like we know where some of these are, and we can start cleaning up as we find them. I don't have an issue with swapping some signs out. I'm sure I can afford swapping some signs out.
Okay.
We're
How
not
many-
talking any new locations at this
Yeah.
moment. We're just talking swapping out what we got.
Libby, didn't you do a collage with a bunch of them around town?
I did, and
Yeah.
I know there are two on Main Street Beach, actually three on Main Street Beach Road. And I don't have the slide in front of me where I did the collection, but I'm happy to
Yeah, send it along, Libby.
together,
Take
sure.
it.
How about if, for starters, we try to post them on Beach Road, Main Beach Road, and Skake It, because that's where we're going to get a lot of heavy traffic coming soon, and those have been problematic areas. And we clean those up, make them uniform, and then we can move forward finding the other places that need swapping out as we go along, Tom.
Tom, I'll suggest that I have a group of traffic safety committee internally with the PD that we reach out and maybe work with Ron going out and identify it. So let's do that. We're going to move forward. We have our sign. Good thing. We'll go out and we'll replace what needs to be replaced, identify locations where we think this sign should go, and we'll continue to move forward. Okay?
Perfect.
That's fine.
All right. Excellent.
Congratulations.
Good work. Good work, everyone.
All right.
Okay, what do we have next, folks? Share the road, Old Colony Way. Tom, any update? I just kept it up on there. I wasn't sure if you wanted to provide any updates, if there were any.
Old Colony Way,
The grant update, we spoke to that last meeting.
yeah, we, hold on, just bear with me a second. We're in a major push. We're going out to bid, actually. I think we're out to bid, actually, at this point as of last week for that sidewalk project, for that grant sidewalk project. Bids are due in like 2 weeks. So this whole project had new sidewalk, basically, Old Colony Way from Main to, we'll just say Staples Plaza, the first entrance.
Yeah.
You know, the other side of the farmer's market. It has to be done by
Yeah.
May 31st.
Yeah,
So
right.
that's the update.
Okay, thank you, Tom. Speed zone review. This is the last item we have for open issues. That's a chapter 9017 review advisory signs. Tom, you were going to do a density review, and we were going to collect some data here at the PD. Let me share my screen again. And again, folks, this is that we have a black box that we can hang up. You don't really know it's there, so it really provides accurate data with respect to the speed of vehicles. You can see that we only had it up for a short time. We collected about just under 10,000 vehicles. In one of the driving factors in determining appropriate speed for a roadway is what's referred to as the 85th percentile. There are other factors involved, but this is primarily the major factor. And you can see the 85th percentile is at 34 miles an hour. I thought it was going to be higher than that. It came in much lower than I thought. But really what's going to be at the determining factor here is the density. Tom?
Yeah, I did the analysis. It totally suits the density for the, you know, thickly settled 30-mile-per-hour sign.
Okay.
So if this group's good with it, we'll effectuate.
Yeah, Chief, I'm just looking back at the now that was done obviously off peak in January.
Correct.
And I've got your data in front of me of June 2016. So there you got kind of just before the summer season starts. And you got 85th there or 36.
Yeah.
Okay, so I mean, what you're saying is it makes sense.
And just as a side, folks, I'm a big fan of this data collection device. It is absolutely fantastic. And we have this moving all around town. So if you have a specific area that you'd like to collect some data on, please let me know and I'll be happy to get this device up and running for you. So this is regulatory. So this is an item that will be brought to the Board of Selectmen for their review. So are we all in agreement that a 9017 thickly settled density is correct, 30 miles an hour moving forward?
Yep.
Okay,
Yes.
Scott, may I ask a question?
certainly.
So I'm noticing though, this is just January, right?
Yeah. But no, we've collected on this street before, Alice.
So that's a compilation, that 34 and the 85th.
No, but Doug referenced another period of time. when we
June
collected data also.
2016. So
Yes, but
just
that was
before the summer season started, it was 36 miles an hour. What you don't want, 85th percentile, Alice, is typically what they use for regulating speed limits. You don't want the average, you don't want the highest, you want the lowest. So it's basically saying 15% of the people who exceed the speed limit are in violation.
Right, right.
Okay.
I'm just questioning the collection and whether it's the random sample that we really need to consider year-round use of Barley Neck.
Yeah, so I look at it, you can look at it a couple different ways. When you're looking at, you know, the 9017, which is the density. So the speed doesn't have as much of a factor when the houses are within, what is it, Tom, 200 feet? I believe
That's
that's the density
Right.
estimation. So
200, yeah.
because of that density is the reason why it's going to be a thickly settled 30. Not necessarily in this particular case, the 85th percentile.
Mhm.
And jump in if I'm way off base, Doug. But I'm certainly comfortable based on the density alone in the reduction from 40 rural to 30 thickly settled in this particular case.
Yep.
And I think that the homeowners and residents are going to be very pleased with that.
Yeah,
Mhm.
that makes sense. Thank you, Scott.
Scott, if I can be clear too for everyone on the call. So we're starting at the intersection of Poche. It didn't make it from Maine to Poche, but from the intersection of Poche all the rest of the way out, it was thickly settled.
Okay.
And we'll post it as such.
And, you know, Tom, I just have a feeling the more we start conducting these analysis on these streets, we're going to get more requests to do so,
Sure.
which is fine,
Yeah.
which is fine.
Mhm.
Meth?
This is great, by the way. Just you know, uneducated opinion is that the 2 months that are really important are July and August, because that's the time at which the roads are most crowded and the time at which speed is the most dangerous. You know, people in January, it's interesting to know, but still, I think most of these people are probably residents, whereas in July and August you'd be getting the tourist and the residents.
Yeah.
And so it's tourist behavior that may be more problematic than resident behavior. I don't know. But anyways, I think this is great. I think this is getting down to the 30 miles an hour. My question was, where on Barley Neck did you hang the black box?
I can't reveal that information.
Oh, okay.
I'm just kidding. I really have we have this traffic safety group, and they go out. I don't know exactly where it was, but we try to pick an area, a straightaway.
Yeah.
Right.
People are
Right.
most likely to drive at a higher speed. So we try to find that particular area. I just find it really interesting. What I've seen historically is that we don't see a huge difference between summer speeds and off-season speeds. The traffic volume increases dramatically during the summer season, clearly. But as Doug brought into the discussion, we only saw an 85th percentile increase of 2 miles an hour between June and the off-season in January.
Yeah. Technically, June is
Right.
it's not quite
Not
it's
quite there.
there.
It's just
yeah.
before, yeah.
But regardless, what we're seeing in that whole area is a lot of joggers, walkers, cyclists. So I think it's a really good idea to bring the speed down to the 30. Alice, did you have something?
God, I'm so sorry to ask you to go back quickly, but on the agenda before we finish up, I missed the update on our budget request. If somebody could just give me an update, where are we with that? And also, did we make any decisions about traffic calming?
I'll address traffic calming. We had previously in meetings made some decisions on where we would like to direct some of the potential funding.
Yes.
And Main Street near River Road for a solar speed sign was one area that's been on the list, top of the list. And then again, we have to come back to Skakit Beach Road.
Right.
And some of the issues that we've talked there with traffic calming. So that's something we need to have a follow-up discussion on if and when the money comes through. And Meth, if you don't mind giving us just a brief update again on the funding.
Yeah, Alice, it's going to be a warrant article at town meeting rather than a budget line item. And it has the advantage of creating a pool of money that stays there across fiscal years. If it's in the budget and you don't spend it at the end of the year, you have to turn it back in and then request another budget line item the following year. So at $20,000, I think that it's a pretty safe town meeting warrant article. And just need to be prepared to speak knowledgeably about it. And one of the, you were just speaking, Scott, I think one of the things that should probably be ready to be explained is the ideas of what might be what that money might be used for. You know, the the speed, the digital speed limit signs and whatever else, but more concrete that you can be with that money, so that you don't get the idea that we're just putting $20,000 into a kitty without really having a plan for it. I think that's probably the best approach.
And Meth, if I could ask, are you anticipating then that it will continue to be a warrant article always, or does it move then into the budget as a?
No, I think that I think that after this first warrant article, $20,000 is spent, then the question is, we'll be in a better position to know whether it should just be put into the budget rather than
Warrant each year, yeah.
yeah.
That, okay, and the only, and that, thank goodness we're doing something, so thank you so much for that. I guess my only point that I'd like to make is that there hasn't been a meeting that I've sat in on where we haven't been saying, where are we gonna get the money for this? And the whole idea of this was to be sure this committee could be nimble when issues came up, and we're not kicking the can down the road because we don't have the money to do something that's urgently needed. And so I guess what we would want to be sure that we, the big idea I think that taxpayers would want to be aware of is that if they want a community that is going to be able to be responsive to conditions, right? And we want to be able to be nimble in that regard, we need some money to work with, because we can't be sitting around saying, oh my God, we've got a problem with a crosswalk and we don't have any money to fix it.
Are you practicing your town meeting speech?
I am nimble. I like nimble, Myth.
Okay, folks. Tom, thank you for that density eval. And I will try to get in front of the board as soon as I can. The one item we have for new business, I provided the committee members with a letter from Mr. John Nichols. And that was a reference to some recommendations he had at intersections, specifically with crosswalk signals. Now, my question is this: do we have any crosswalk signals in town that fall under our jurisdiction?
No.
No.
The only one, no, actually, Tom, the only one that does under, that is the town, is the one at Taunton, Maine. You
Yeah,
own
but
that
it doesn't have a crosswalk.
Yes, it does. It has a crosswalk, and it has
a crosswalk?
Yes. It's on the east side.
Are there crosswalks there?
There's one it's a sort of a half signal, but there's a crosswalk there, and there's this pedestrian signal on the east side of Main Street, Taunton.
Okay, so no,
Okay,
thank
so
you.
that's the only one that the town owns. Okay, all the others, so there's 5 total signals. All the other 4, not excluding the one on Eldridge Parkway at the fire station, but all the others are owned by the state.
Hey, Sarah, is by chance, Mr. Nichols said that he would be attending. By chance, is he in the waiting room?
I have 2 people. I have Natalie and then somebody that has Tolstoy 2001. Not sure if that's him.
Okay, is there a way we can check to see if anyone needs to speak on this issue?
Yep, I can allow him to talk. So they
Okay.
both have ability to talk.
Hi, folks. Does anyone have any comments relative to the pedestrian crossing signals?
Well, if you'd like me to comment, I will. My name's John
John,
Nichols.
is this you?
I'm John Nichols, yes.
Hi, John. Great. We created an agenda item for you, so the floor is yours, my friend.
Well, I was crossing, I was riding my bike at the intersection of Main Street and Tonsett Road. I had flashing lights on my bike. I have a lot of reflective equipment on my bike, and I was struck by a vehicle which turned left on a Tonsett and knocked my bike down and did not injure me other than aches and pains. But the driver claimed that he did not see me. He did not see the flashing lights on my helmet. He did not see anything, and he ran right into me. And had he not stopped within a few feet, I would have been killed. And it's dangerous. Therefore, I suggested that all lights where there are crosswalks be red, and also, if you have the technology to do it. What Hyannis does is have a buzzing signal when people are crossing. And I don't know if you have the technology to do it, but 2 or 3 feet more, I would have been killed. And therefore, it's a concern to me. And I suggested that all lights be red in all directions while the people are crossing. So I guess that's my comment.
Does anyone have any specific, thank you, Mr. Nichols, we appreciate your input. Does anyone have any specific knowledge? Doug, are you familiar with these type of devices?
Yes, I am. I just have a question, Mr. Nichols. In your letter, you said 6A in Maine, and you just now said Tonsett in Maine. Which location was it?
This was Tonsett in Maine, but
Tonsett in Maine. Okay, your letter didn't say that.
I'm sorry.
Your letter did not say that. So I was a little confused.
Oh, it happened at Tonsett in Maine, but
okay. It happened in Tonsett, Maine. Okay, so that's different than what your letter said then. So that's why I was confused. Okay. Maybe just a little background on these things. So there's 5 signals in town. The one at Skakert, the one at 6A, 28 in Main Street, they operate exclusive. So in other words, what that means, and Mr. Nichols, this is what you're referring to, is when the pedestrian button is called, all traffic stops. Okay, so that's how that works. Those two work. They're not high pedestrian oriented signals, so that's why it works that way. They're meant to process the traffic. 6A in Main Street is run, and the other option on pedestrian signals is run concurrently. So what that means is when the north-south traffic goes, the pedestrian gets the north-south pedestrian call. Okay, everybody with me with that? So that's called concurrent. So the pedestrian is walking in the direction of the traffic, and then when the pedestrian is in the crosswalk, obviously the pedestrian has the right of way. So if someone was turning and clearly didn't see you, and that's the case. One in Tonsett, Maine is half a signal where there is a north-south concurrent flow out there. All right, so the one at 6A in Maine, and I remember studying this years ago, and the way it's set up to design, if you stop that completely, now it stopped all cars from one pedestrian makes the call, you're going to have a backup of traffic. So it is traffic analysis that occurs with the operation of that signal. That's why that one is run concurrently to process traffic. Okay. The signal at Tonsett, Maine is very antiquated. I don't know if it has, and I haven't opened the box recently on that, if it has the capabilities of shutting down the traffic when the pedestrian button is called. So I'd have to look at that anyway. All right. All the other signals in town, right outside your office, Chief, the 28 and 28 Eldridge Parkway, Tonsett, there's no pedestrian signals whatsoever right there at all. And when you were building your facility, I was hoping they would get pedestrian calls there, but there is not one. So that's something down the list that maybe we request for the state to do anyway. So Tonsett, Maine would have to be looked at to see if you could just shut the signal down and not make it concurrent. And that would seem to make sense. It's not a high pedestrian signal, but there are a lot of bikes that go through there. So that would need to be looked at. My concern was when I read your letter, I thought 6A in Maine should stay the way it is. There is another option, just to let people know, there's something called an LPI, leading pedestrian interval. So what happens, and all this stuff gets down to complete streets in processing traffic and processing pedestrians through intersections. As the pedestrian hits the button, the pedestrian gets the call first. So it might be 2, might be 3 seconds. And then the cars going north-south will get the green ball. Okay, that's called an LPI. All right, that may be what's set up in Hyannis. I know some of the heavy urban areas have that a lot to let the pedestrians cross. So I guess in summary, the 6A in Maine, I need to look at that to see if it could be shut down and be run total red indication for everybody once the pedestrian button's called. Were you traveling, Mr. Nichols, in the crosswalk, or were you just traveling in the flow of traffic?
No, I was traveling. I tried to cross in the crosswalk at Tonsett and Main.
Which direction were you going?
I was going, let me see.
Just direction,
East.
so I
I
understand.
was going east.
Okay,
east.
so you're going towards the beach
Yes.
and you're turning left onto Tonsett?
I wasn't turning. I was going from downtown, trying to cross Tonsett Road, heading east. I wasn't turning.
So you were basically a motor vehicle.
Well, I was on the sidewalk. I don't know what you're talking about.
Okay, you were going from town to the Nauset Beach, right?
Correct.
All right, so you're on the right side of the road. So there's no pedestrian button. The pedestrian button's on the other side of the street.
No, I was on the left side of the road, on the sidewalk. I was
Oh,
on the
you're right.
left side of the road as on the sidewalk.
You were riding on the sidewalk. Okay,
Correct.
all right. That signal would need to be looked at to see if it could be shut down so that when you press the button, did you push the button at all?
Oh, yes, I did.
Okay, all
Several
right. So
times.
that would need to be looked at to see if that could be done.
Yeah, okay, I think we just look at it as Mr. Nichols, pedestrian, whether there was a bicycle involved or not, and see if there's any safety improvements that we can make. So, Mr. Nichols, we will keep this on the agenda for our next meeting, and we will get an update. We appreciate your input. Thank you.
Thank you.
So I'm sorry, I did forget one item that we have to go back to, which is hold on just one, West Road Salty Ridge. So we've been talking a lot about that, and over the past week, I received another concern from a resident. I sent you a copy of the email. Essentially, the concern is that the cyclists that are coming off the trail onto Salty Ridge, many of them are traveling at a high rate of speed, causing a hazardous condition, and then they come into that 90-degree turn. And apparently we've had some accidents involving bicycles in that area. I didn't pull the specific details, but the resident did describe one particular accident that she observed. Let me share my screen with a recommendation that Ms. McDonald had from that area on a way of trying to slow down the cyclist. She referenced this particular device. I'm not familiar with it. Anyone have any information on this? Okay. What I told Ms. McDonald is that we would briefly discuss it today. I'd like to get out there and take a look at the area and wrap my head around exactly what the concern is, and then come back to this committee and try to brainstorm some ideas that we may have. It sounds like this is really about slowing down cyclists as they come off the trail onto Salty Ridge, where there is vehicular traffic. Not a lot, but there is some. Any thoughts or comments?
I was a little confused on which direction she was referring to. Is coming from Brewster to go to Orleans or the other way around?
From Brewster to Orleans.
Okay.
So they're coming off that straightaway onto Salty Ridge.
Yep.
Shortly thereafter, when they're on Salty Ridge, you have that 90-degree turn to the left. There's that little cul-de-sac down at the end. Apparently, that's, as she described, a very dangerous situation. So we can certainly, I want to get out there and take a look at it, and I'll bring that back for our next meeting. Sound good? Okay, folks, anything else? Can we just go over homework? Who has what? One of the things that I have on my list is that I haven't been back to see the board yet, but the issue regarding streetlights. It's my understanding, and for many, many years, there's been a prohibition against streetlights. I just want to get in front of the board to confirm that. Okay, so that's something that's still pending. And I need to
Hey,
get the
Chair?
board. Yes.
Just so you're aware, we did reduce our streetlight budget as part of our 2.5% cut, so, yeah, we don't have, just so we know, from a budgetary standpoint, we don't have money to throw up streetlights, just so you're aware.
No, and I understand that, Tom. I just wanted, because we get so many requests, and I get many from residents on the one we have pending now is Cedarland, that they
Yeah,
want.
no, I'm
I just wanna
aware,
get
I'm just letting you know.
Okay. So I just want to get that confirmed with the board, and I'll bring the speed reduction to the board's attention also. Was there anything else that we have pending? Okay, thank
I
you. very
notice
much.
your
Yes.
item I guess, West Road, Salty Ridge recommendations. I think I was pretty clear on those. Tom, you were going to implement those at some point in time, probably before the season, right? So do we need?
We need to follow up and talk about it. Just for
Yeah.
specific, you and I need to follow up. and have
Okay, all right, good.
discussion.
Meet on Saturday, something like that.
Probably something like that, to know
Yeah,
exactly
yeah,
what
yeah.
we're
Okay,
dropping,
cool.
and is what
Yep.
you're talking about.
Good.
So Chief, you're gonna talk to the board before we put any signs up on Bowie Neck?
Yes, because it's a regulatory, that's
Yep.
speed, and the board should approve that.
Yeah, just double checking. Thank you.
No, thank you. And Ron, I'll try to, someone from the PD will connect with you. We can talk about sharing the road signs. And Tom, we'll have to connect with you to get the measurements for any additional no parking areas. At some point, that's going to have to be drawn up and memorialized.
Yeah, I talked to Nate grabbed me last week about it. And basically I said, well, okay, you just kind of, you give me the plans you posted, and then kind of like mark on the pavement, like he might go out, mark on the pavement where we're talking, and then I can measure it all up and write it up.
Okay. Thanks, Tom. Anything else, folks? Great. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Good job, Scott. Thanks,
Thanks,
everyone.
guys.